You have decided to get a rabbit, or you already have one, and now you are standing in your HDB flat, trying to figure out where on earth it is supposed to live. The pet shop sold you a cage. Your auntie thinks it should stay in the cage, and the internet keeps showing rabbits with a run of a whole apartment. So which is it? Cage, pen, or free roam in a flat that is already a bit tight? That is the whole question we are sorting out today, calmly and realistically, for a real Singapore home. I'm a rabbit owner, not a vet. Everything here is housing and setup talk, the stuff I wish someone had laid out plainly before I wasted money on the wrong thing. It is not medical advice, and anything that touches your rabbit's health, sore feet, posture, behavior that worries you, that goes to a rabbit-savvy vet, not to a video. What I can do is walk you through the 3 ways people house rabbits here, and which one actually fits the space you have. Here is the plan. First, why the cage you were sold is almost certainly too small, and what that does to a rabbit. Then the exercise pen, which is what most owners here actually use, and how big it needs to be. Then free roam, the gold standard, and the honest list of what it asks of you. Then the 2 HDB things people get wrong, flooring and heat. And finally, how to match all of this to whether you are in a studio, a 3-room, or a bigger flat. Let us start with the cage, because that is where most people begin, and it is where most rabbits get stuck. A typical pet shop cage is around 60 by 40 centimeters. That sounds fine until you do the maths. That is about 1/4 of a square meter of floor. The guide on our site puts the minimum a rabbit needs at 4 to 6 square meters of regular exercise space. So that little cage is giving them somewhere around 4% of what they actually need. 4%. Verwikken Kaolivits, a rabbit in a space that small cannot do the basic things its body is built for. It cannot stand fully upright on its back legs. It cannot take 3 or 4 hops in any direction. It cannot really stretch out and properly lie down. Think about that for a second. An animal that in the wild covers a lot of ground every day is being asked to spend its whole life in a box the size of a couple of shoe boxes. And when a rabbit is kept like that for most of the day, you start seeing the consequences. Sore hocks on the feet, which is a painful pressure sore problem that comes from sitting on a hard floor with no room to move. And beyond the physical, you get boredom, frustration, and the kind of behavior problems, the bar biting, the listlessness, the grumpiness that come from an animal with nothing to do and nowhere to go. None of that is the rabbit being difficult. It is the rabbit telling you the space is wrong. So does the cage have any place at all? Yes, a narrow one. A cage is fine as a temporary thing, travel, a vet stay, a short illness recovery where you are told to limit movement. As an emergency or short-term tool, it is genuinely useful. What it should never be is the place your rabbit lives all day, every day. The rule I go by is simple. A cage is a pool, not a home. If your rabbit is locked in one for 23 hours a day, that is the thing causing the problems, not fixing them. Now the option most Singapore owners land on, and the one I would point a first-time owner toward, the exercise pen, the X-Pen. It is a ring of tall wire panels. You stand up on the floor, and it gives the rabbit a proper enclosed area that is many times bigger than any cage, while still being something you can contain and tidy away. Our guide calls it the Singapore standard, and reckons it suits about 90% of owners here. That matches what I see in real flats. Size matters, so let us be specific, because this is where people underbuy. For a small breed rabbit, you are looking at roughly 1.5 meters across. For a medium breed, around 2 meters. For a large breed, 2 meters or more. Those numbers feel big when you are standing in the shop holding a tiny baby bunny. But that baby grows, and the pen has to fit the adult. And here is the part people skip entirely. The pen is not the whole story on its own. A rabbit in a pen still needs 3 to 4 hours of time outside the pen every single day, minimum, to actually move and stretch and behave like a rabbit. The pen is the home base, the place they sleep and eat and have their litter box. But it is not the entire world. If you cannot commit to that daily out time, the pen on its own is not enough, and you should be honest with yourself about that before you bring a rabbit home. Cost-wise, A pen setup runs you somewhere in the region of 60 to 150 Singapore dollars, depending on the panels and what you put inside. That is not nothing, but it is a one-time spend that lasts years, and it is far better value than buying a cage first and then a pen later when you realize the cage was a mistake. For that money you get adequate space, something that genuinely works in an HDB flat, and an enclosure you can move around or close up when guests come over or when you need to clean. The honest downsides, because every option has them. The pin alone is not enough without that daily out of pin time, and some determined rabbits learn to climb the panels or nudge them apart and let themselves out. So you may need taller panels, a few clips to lock the sections together, or a top in stubborn cases. Then there is free roam, which is the gold standard, the thing those lovely internet videos are showing you. Free roam means the rabbit has the run of a room, or even the whole flat instead of being pinned, and it is genuinely the best for the animal. They get the most space, they move the most, and you get to see far more of their actual personality, because a rabbit with room to roam behaves like a rabbit, not like a prisoner. But free roam asks a lot of you, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. It needs intensive rabbit proofing before the rabbit ever gets the run of the place. That means covering every single cable, because chewed wires are a genuine danger to the rabbit and a genuine fire risk to you, protecting furniture legs and skirting boards from teeth that never stop growing, blocking the gaps behind and under furniture where a rabbit will happily disappear, and a rabbit that is properly litter trained so your floor stays livable. It is harder if you are renting and cannot drill or modify much, and it gets complicated fast if you have other pets in the mix. A curious dog or cat changes the whole calculations. Setup-wise, you are looking at maybe 100 to 300 Singapore dollars. Once you have bought all the proofing, the cable covers, the mats, the barriers. Here is the reassuring part though, and the guide makes this point well, because it is the thing that stops a lot of people unnecessarily. A lot of owners think free roam is some impossible, unreachable level of effort, and it really is not once the proofing is actually done. The hard work is front-loaded. You spend a weekend, maybe two, covering cables and blocking gaps and sorting the litter habits, and after that, the day-to-day is genuinely easier than running a pen, because there is no daily juggling of in-time and out-time. The rabbit just lives in the space. Free roam is also especially nice for a bonded pair who have each other and the room to behave like a proper little pair, grooming, lounging, and chasing each other around. So do not write it off as too hard before you have actually costed out the weekend it takes. A quick word on two rabbits. Since it changes the numbers, a bonded pair needs more space in proportion, not just double the stuff crammed into the same area. They need room to get away from each other when they want to, as well as room to be together. If you are penning a pair, you want a minimum of around 2 meters across, and honestly, free roam suits a pair even better since they will use all of it. And please never put unbonded rabbits together in a shared space, because that goes very wrong very fast. Rabbits can fight and seriously injure each other. Proper bonding is a careful process and its own topic for another day. Now the two HDB specific things people get wrong, starting with flooring. Our flats are mostly tile, and tile is a real problem for rabbits. It is slippery, which stresses their joints and legs over time, and they cannot get a grip to hop and turn naturally, so they end up moving carefully and stiffly instead of freely. The fix is easy and cheap, which is the good news. Lay down removable, washable mats or rugs over the area they use. Something with a bit of grip and a bit of cushion that you can pick up, shake out, and clean. Foam play mats, the interlocking kind, work well, so do plain washable rugs. And skip wall-to-wall carpet, because rabbits will either chew it or soil it, and you will regret committing your whole floor to something you cannot lift up and wash. Then, the second HDB thing is heat, and this is the one that genuinely matters for safety here, more than anything else in this video. Rabbits handle our heat badly, full stop. They cannot sweat, they cannot pant well, and a hot afternoon in an un-aircon room is dangerous for them in a way it simply is not for us. So the enclosure or the free roam area needs to be in an air-conditioned room when it is hot. That part is not optional in the Singapore afternoon. Please do not treat it as a nice to have. But, and this is the balance people get wrong the other way, do not park the pen directly under the aircon blast either, because a cold draft pouring straight onto a small animal all day is its own problem. You want the room comfortably cool with the rabbit positioned out of the direct draft. Cool room. No gale blowing straight onto them. That is the sweet spot. So let us put it all together and match the setup to your actual flat, because that is what this really comes down to. The average HDB is somewhere between 60 and 90 square meters. And the good news is you do not need a mansion, a bedroom, or even a quarter of the living room will hold a pen perfectly well. It is about carving out a sensible zone, not surrendering the whole flat. If you are in a studio or a one-room, a meter and a half pen with 3 to 4 hours of out-of-pen time works, or you go full free roam in that single space, which many studio owners actually find easiest because there is less to manage. In a 2 or 3 room flat, a pen in a dedicated room is the classic answer, with free roam in that room when you are home to supervise. In a bigger 4 or 5 room, a lot of owners spin at night for peace of mind and let the rabbit free roam one room, or eventually the whole flat during the day. The point is, there is a workable setup for every layout, and almost none of them require the cage you started with. You are not choosing between a perfect rabbit palace and nothing. You are choosing the best version of the space you already have. If I had to give you the short version, it is this. The cage you were sold is for emergencies, not for living in. The pen is the sensible default that fits almost every HDB flat, as long as you pair it with real daily time outside it. Free roam is the best of all if you are willing to do the proofing upfront, and it is more achievable than people think. And whichever you choose, get the flooring and the heat right, because in Singapore, those two are the difference between an enclosure that works and one that quietly makes your rabbit miserable. The biggest mistake I see is the one we started with. Someone assumes the pet shop cage is enough. The rabbit lives in it almost all day, and then they cannot understand why their bunny seems frustrated or unwell. It is almost always the space. Give a rabbit room to move, and most of that disappears. You do not need a big home. You just need to set up the space you have on purpose. If this helped you picture your own setup, come over to singaporerabbit.com. We put out a free weekly digest for Singapore rabbit owners, and you will find our directories there too, including a vet directory so you can line up a rabbit-savvy clinic before you ever need one, and the full written version of this housing guide with the sizing and costs all laid out. It is all free and it is all made for owners right here. And if you are enjoying these, the next video gets into rabbit proofing a room properly, the realistic cable by cable version for an HDB flat, so you can actually do that free roam step with confidence. So subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.